Good afternoon, everyone in the virtual room. Super excited and honored to be here today, together with my colleague Daniel, and talking in Women in Tech, in front of so many amazing ladies and amazing gentlemen. Today, we will deep dive in the topic saved by IT, when the pandemic hit us last year, 2020. Before we start, I would like to introduce myself and also let my colleague introduce himself. My name is Menatala Ashraf. I took my Master's of Science in Information Technology from KTH Royal Institute of Technology in 2015. I performed my master thesis at Scania, and then directly after that, I started working at Scania. I'm today the group manager of a fantastic team called Client Delivery at the End User Productivity Department within Scania IT. The interesting fact is that me and Daniel went to the same education and the same school, KTH, but we have around 12 years apart in graduation. With that said, Daniel, could you please introduce yourself more to our audience?
Okay, thank you, Mena, and thank you for making me feel a little bit old about the 12 years in between. And hello also, as Mena said, amazing ladies and also amazing gentlemen. So currently I'm heading the IT department Mena mentioned, end user productivity. That covers service desk, it covers collaboration services, workplace services, etc. So a lot of services in use by all of our colleagues within Scania globally. I'm super proud to be here representing my great organization. An organization in which we have many great co-workers with many strong, driven and brilliant women working in tech. Mena, who's here with me today, is an excellent example of that. So I'm super happy to have her with me. I'm personally in love with the digital workplace and the value it brings. Values growing stronger every day. The impact we can make with our services is huge. We can really make a difference in many aspects. The necessity of having a modern and attractive digital workplace is of the essence now, especially after what happened during the last year.
Great. Thanks, Daniel, for letting us know more about you and your input about the importance of having a modern and attractive digital workplace. Let us reflect for a few seconds how the importance of IT has grown under the past year. Who would believe that the sales of trucks would be performed remotely? And meeting customers and our colleagues and a lot more would be performed distantly, like this digital Women in Tech conference. So let us start to understand more about Scania and also give us the ground and basis of this presentation. So Daniel, could you please inform us all about Scania's vision, where we're heading and what we want to achieve as a company?
For sure, I'd love to do that, Mena. And as we all know, the world is changing faster than ever and it's accelerating, and that's a fact. In the same way, we, Scania, must change as well to adapt to the new situations, because the new situations occur all the time. And we have committed to, as it says here on the screen, driving the shift towards a sustainable transport system. We will create a world of mobility that is better for business, society, and not least the environment. But let's put this in IT context, looking back a few years. Scania is a traditional industrial company. We have been around for a very long time. And I would say, like most big industrial companies, being open and modern in terms of IT has not been a priority historically. And lucky for us, this has changed, especially during the last 3 to 4 years. And boy, are we lucky for it. So the theme of today's presentation is that Scania was saved by IT, which I know is a very bold statement. And this relates to a big extent to the COVID-19 breakout. With that, I turn to my colleague Mena again and ask her, could you please describe for our peers how the COVID-19 impacted us within IT about a year ago from now?
Yes, of course, Daniel. So when COVID-19 hit, it was nothing we expected, and it was a sudden twist of events. More than 10,000 of our colleagues were sent to work from home, which means that there was a sudden pressure on the IT department, which is a quite big department in Scania. We are around 1,600 colleagues working in IT. One of the biggest impacts was a sudden and significant need of laptops. So for example, the colleagues that normally had use of desktops in their office environment needed laptops. So that means they needed double hardware. Another impact was the VPN and Citrix capacity that went also up. And that means that the colleagues, for example, who needed to remote to their desktops in the office or to remote into the Scania network to reach applications went up. And when such capacity goes up, we also notice quickly that there is a need for our colleagues of having how-to guides, telling them and explaining to them when to use, for example, the VPN connection and when to use their own home network to offload the Scania network. Another more obvious increase in usage was our collaboration tools and digital meetings that just went up the roof. And I will show you in a while the interesting numbers. We managed that better than most. Why is that? And I turn to Daniel and ask him, could you please enlighten us all? What were the steps taken that IT took to save the situation?
Thank you, Mena, and I would be super glad to do that. Yes, so what our excellent colleagues at Scania has accomplished is what I call a modern digital workplace. And there are a few aspects behind that, and those are these 6 on the screen, and I will go from left to right. First, going for a clear strategy towards using a complete suite of capabilities and applications from a leader in the market. In our case, we went from Microsoft 365, but there are other players out there. And that gave us a quite extensive and also secure toolbox. And that also gave us a clear direction on what we should use for our needs. So direction. Second, in general, we have targeted to make our digital workplace services accessible from any type of device. Still secure, certainly, that's always important. But that should be from more or less anywhere, giving flexibility to work from wherever you can be awesome. And this gave flexibility. Then third, to further address security, we quite early ensured that our devices or computers could be kept secure even when not connected to the company network, when connected from home. And we did that through installing updates over internet, and this gave security. Fourth, it has for a while been a very clear movement within the company towards cloud service adoption. Those working with IT have heard that word a few times before, I guess. And moving more and more applications to the cloud is super important. And that also means buying more and more readily services from cloud. And that's something that Scania started quite some time ago, and that gave us cloud readiness. Fifth, we have put efforts on building the services in smart ways, preparing for future needs, making them, as it's called, scalable. This means that we could, when the need for very much higher capacity was there, as Mena mentioned, could increase this capacity quite quickly to support the changing needs. This gave us scalability. Sixth and last, a problem that hit us quite early, increasing capacity, increasing VPN, tunneling, remote connection, call it what you want. Doing that for all needs would be very expensive if you just went for buying. We needed also to guide the end users to use the capacity only when they needed, meaning that we wanted to keep most of the services available from the cloud without the need for using VPN or remote connections. And by this, we could also avoid great costs. And this gave us resource efficiency. So let us continue. When talking about this success story for us, we very often focus on how the end user behaviors has changed. And I will turn to Mena now again and ask her, could you go into how we have seen a few of those changes?
Yes, of course. And as you can see, this was the graph I meant when I mentioned the increase of collaboration tools and digital meetings. At the beginning of implementing the Office 365 strategy that Daniel mentioned, there was a reluctance of using Teams meeting, chats, Microsoft functions. But when the pandemic hit, the need and fear was overcome. And we can see that visually here in the graph. This picture shows the use of meetings and chat messages from last year. Do you notice where in the picture the COVID-19 hit? It's quite obvious. In the middle of March. You can see that in the graph. And this also was when our colleagues were sent home. We went up in the middle of March to 8,000 meetings and 200,000 chat messages. Currently, after a year of working remotely, the figures went to 16,000 meetings a day, which is double the amount we saw last year, and 460,000 chat messages a day. And this also shows the big culture change the company went through under this period. And we will continue to go through in this learning and adaptation period. And that brings us to the next topic, which is when the increase of colleagues working remotely and the increased use of our applications through VPN and Citrix connection. This was security. It is a tricky thing, right? With opening up from the internet. How did Scania think about this, Daniel?
Yeah, a tricky thing indeed. And it's still a challenge, and it was a bigger challenge at first for us as well. As for most, it's a balance. What we can say in general is that the previous ways of seeing security are no longer applicable. The scene changes. And let me bring you a few examples delivering the statement in the headline there. Openness is more secure. Mm-hmm. It's a nice slogan, right? First, to emphasize that, we could have opted to not make it possible for our colleagues to invite people from outside our company, from outside Scania, to collaborate in our Microsoft Teams setup. Doesn't really make sense not to invite, but for security reasons, you could say we are letting externals into our system. We are letting externals access our information. Isn't that a security risk? Well, we went for opening up. Because if we wouldn't have done that, it would only mean that our colleagues would go elsewhere to solve their collaboration needs because they need to collaborate with external parties. That's part of Scania. We are collaborating with a lot of other companies. And certainly the choice that they would make then would be less secure than we could make it in a controlled manner by allowing it. So we enabled this, what's called external collaboration, and that was just one of the many decisions along the path. What we did instead was to work on securing the content rather than securing access. So instead of perimeter security thinking, we think about protecting the information that is sensitive and working on that level instead. And that was very much appreciated, of course, because in general, too much security will make tools useless and inconvenient. End users will not use them. They will not provide any value to the company. And we must always balance security level with accessibility. And by that, I mean how easy it is to access and start being productive. That's the purpose of our services. It's to make our end users productive. Our colleagues should be productive in what they're doing. So both these mentioned bullets are looking into the same area, It's that we need to avoid end users going for other options that are less secure. We need to provide services that fulfill their needs with enough security. And the shift within this area lately has clearly been on securing the content, protecting the content, using capabilities for that when needed, and then perimeter-based security is no longer enough. Okay, and with that, that brings us into the next topic. Looking into this, are we happy with where we are, or do we want to improve something else? Please, Menna, take over.
Yes, so I would say, of course, we want to improve more, and we will always have next steps in such situation, because this will continue to be a learning and developing period for all of us. Since it's a new situation, and it will take time to adapt and figure out what is needed from us now, currently, versus the life and the work environment after situation is over. Some questions are hard to figure fully out. For example, will we return to our normal situation of usage of our working areas, or will we continue with working remotely? With that said, that sets a huge pressure on IT department on working with transformation and transitioning towards speed and flexibility, adapting and developing a new digital workplace to our new and coming ways of working. Then also working with a new digital toolset. For example, we have seen that we have a need of a workshop capabilities. And with these capabilities, there is a department within IT working with collaboration services, introducing capabilities that are needed of our end users and our colleagues while working remotely. Furthermore, we have seen that we need to work with what we call productivity coaching, to come nearer to our end users and colleagues and show them and teach them how to use these collaboration tools and many other tool sets we have and introducing all the time. We also noticed with this pandemic that there was an increased need of mobility and reaching applications with openness that is more secure, that you just mentioned, Daniel. Another interesting next step is that my team actually is developing and working on, and that is new methods on delivering hardware to our colleagues. We're working on what we call vending machines, where our colleagues can receive and cancel their laptops and desktops in a machine, the same as you have Instabox in Sweden, where we receive packages, but this will be then laptops and desktops they can put in the system or in the machine and bring them back. Finally, one of the next steps is an initiative called Green IT. And this initiative works partially with making the developers work sustainable with their code, helping them visualize the environmental impact of our applications that we have at Scania, and give them recommendations how to reduce the environmental impact. Another concept that is integrated with the Green IT is called closing the loop concept, which means that we can manage the life cycle of the hardware we use. We make sure that our products and our hardware is recycled or reused after us. And of course, these were some examples of the next steps, but there are many more that we're going to introduce and make sure introduce under this learning period. With that said, I go back to Daniel and ask him if he could conclude to us, what are the main takeaways of this?
Thank you, Menna. Yeah, before summarizing what's on the screen, we are at Women in Tech, so I would really want to emphasize something. Highlighting that the success that we've had would not have been possible without our excellent women within the company. As I said, Menna is one of them, together with me here, but a lot of the key players in this were women. I want to stress that. They were really contributing with hard work and strong effort. So this is really a big team effort from the big and diverse team we have here. So going through the three main topics here, just emphasizing once again, Having a modern digital workplace is by far more important than ever before. That is something that I'm truly, truly convinced of. And I hope that I can convince you as well if you're not already convinced. It's super, super important. Another thing is being modern. It's nowadays a necessity. It's not a choice. You must be modern to be competitive, and that also considers the digital workplace. It's a key differentiator, if we put it like that. And finally, there is a lot more to do. We have done a lot of good things, but we need to do a lot more. As Mena mentioned in the previous slide, we will need speed and flexibility to meet the ever-changing needs. We need to be close to our end users because that is the key. We need to make our colleagues productive. That's our mission. And with that, I will once again hand over for Mena to finish this presentation.
Mm-hmm. Great, and I actually agree with the digital workplace that you said. If you made us agree, and I agree with you. And thank you all for listening to Saved by IT, where you got to see with us how Scania's IT department has been doing during the few years invested in bringing a modern, mobile, and secure digital workplace into place, and how the IT department and Scania reacted when the pandemic hit with full force in the first quarter of 2020. I hope you all enjoyed listening to us and got something out of this presentation. And I hope to meet you all next year face to face when we have overcome these challenging times. If you want to reach me or Daniel, we will leave this slide for a while. You can scan the QR codes and find us on LinkedIn. And after this presentation, we will jump into the discussion room. If you have any questions for us or any discussions or have any input on the presentation, we will be glad to hear it and answer your questions. Thank you finally for me. And Donny, do you have any final words?
No, I don't. You put it very, very well, Mena. Thank you for being excellent. Thank you all.